This is the Breeders' Cup Races, Day 2 from Churchill Downs, 11/6/2010. So these are last year's Breeders' Cup races in Ability X ratings or with Ability X ratings. And this is how we have laid out that card for Superfecta picks. And we're going to do the same thing this year with both days. On November 4th and November 5th, Friday, Saturday, 2011. So I wanted to use this as an example of how and why we use this method in these particular races to make Superfecta picks consisting of anything from 4 to 6 horses, usually 5. I like to stick with my 5 where I can. That's a nice, gives you a nice bet. It's not overboard on the cost, and always very rewarding even if the Superfecta doesn't pay much, and it's just that much more rewarding if the Superfecta pays quite well. And I believe 5 is always the number for your best bet and not going overboard on the amount. But on days like the Breeders' Cup, the idea is always if you can win a Superfecta early, then perhaps you can be a little more inclusive in some of the Superfectas later in the card. So anytime you can reasonably be more inclusive, it's always better for you as a bettor. Because in these races, the thing about these type of quality races is that all of the horses in the field are pretty much able to win under the right circumstances. So we don't really have a case where we can comfortably throw half the field out almost automatically like we do in everyday racing. And with the size of the purses in these events and the quality of the horses, we have to give some consideration to just about every horse. And then we've got to look at the race from the realities of ability and racing itself, high early speed, low early speed, and the par early speed for the distance. And we've got to make our choices along those lines, knowing that that will have the greatest impacts on the results, as usual. So in the first race, I have the pars adjusted for every distance for the Breeders' Cup, and we're mostly going to go by that par and the abilities of the horse. The top 3 ability ratings and the bottom 3 are always the highest early speed in the last race and the lowest early speed in the last race. And that's how we get a little more visual in our minds on the pace of the race. Another thing that's important is the morning line odds, of course, in our analysis. And we can see on this card 8 races, I believe. 1 I have bad data, so we don't know about that one. And on the percentages, the long-held percentages of horse racing, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 first and second morning line choices winning on this 8 race card. So that's a little better than half, and 50% is normal. We've won third morning line choice winning in the tournament, and we've got 1 long shot winning a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and making quite healthy Superfecta also, but we'll get to that. And we'll start here with the juvenile turf. We've got a 1 mile race on the grass. It's a 2-turn mile. Our par is 50 and early speed 85, ability 50, early speed 85. And going by that with our high early speed and low early speed, and using our top three, bottom three as the parameters, likely parameters of the race as far as the winner and the front group for the superfecta will be concerned. We come up with number 10 being the fastest. The thinking is that's a little overboard on early speed, but still, for this distance, should still be able to make that front group with that kind of rating. Number 13, just about right on par, and par pretty much directs us in our picks. Number 7 is also the same rating at much closer to par early speed. Number 12 is right in the middle of those two, so we leave number 12 out, although number 12 is again the same rating, but amongst those three with the same rating very close to par, we take 7, 13, and take number 4 and number 9 as our low early speed, higher rating horses that we see as power runners, is what I like to call them. And they have 8-1 morning lines. And we've got number 7 at 20-1. And number 10 at 12-1. So we've got a good mix there on the odds. And a very nice superfecta result. That one pays $11,088.60. And that shows you how complex and complicated it is to make a good superfecta bet based on common sense if you have the ability and the par for the distance to guide you in making those picks. It's not real tough. A little common sense and a little general knowledge of racing, like that the high speed, the horses that run with more stamina and run late will usually catch up to the really high speed horses as the wire approaches. So that's what makes the exciting finish in horse racing. And that is a reality and has an impact on all racing all the time. In our second race, the 6 furlong Breeders' Cup Sprint, speed is a little bit more important here, early speed, and our par is 220.98, so we take number 5 and number 1 as being the high early speed horses right around that par. We leave number 6 out because we've got number 2 here at the same early speed with a much better rating, but number 2 would also be 219 if number 2 ran 98 early. So that would be right on our par also, right along with number 5, number 1. So that puts number 2 in, and number 4 right on the par for ability, although it is 20-1. So that's a value horse there, and that's the way to find value is par ability, same ability as the simple pick, which is a fast horse, 20-1 more line, comes in second. Very nice value pick there. And number 9 is better than our 2 at the bottom of the chart. So we take number 9 as the best of these three, and number 9 is in. And that gives us a great superfecta, almost 28,000. The turf sprint, 5 furlongs on the grass. Again, the par 170.95. We take number 2 out of our top horses. Feel that the simple pick is a little overboard on the early speed, and the post position isn't going to do them a whole lot of good. Number 12 and 14. Number 2 has got the really good post position. Number 7 matches that rating at par early speed. Number 5 is a little slower early speed, but much less in rating. And once again, if we put 60 points on number 5, and number 5 ran 98 that would put 60 points on that run. Uh, Number 5 would be 256, and right in that same range as number 2. So number 5 is in, number 4 is in for the same reason. And we go down and take our lowest rating of the bunch, 173, and the Ability X Key Horse at 90 early speed last and a 6-to-1 morning line. And we put those together and actually come up with number 1 winning. And we see that frequently with that number, and that is right on the par, a little bit slow early speed wise, but right on the ability par. So that's another great superfecta there. In the mile and a 16th Breeders' Cup Juvenile, we take a low rating out of our top 3, number 2, number 7 being the one that's closest to par yet under. Par is 50, 90 speed, and those two are a little faster on speed. And we take 69 ability rating for number 5 being right in the middle, and again 30 to 1 in the morning line, so that's another great value deal there. And number 9, again the high rating, low early speed, power runner type of horse, 30 to 1 also on the morning line, and that is the 30 to 1 horse that does make the superfecta, along with one of the Euros, which we have 2, but about the only way to deal with those is throw those 2 in and maybe put them on your ticket 3rd and 4th and mix them in there, and that's probably the best way to bet those. But when you only have a couple of them, do as you don't really have an accurate assessment of their ability, and usually they don't play. They don't pay for the plane ticket and go to all the expense to bring the horse over here just on a whimsy. So we always take that into consideration. And then, of course, on race day, you have the option of looking out on the track at the post-parade and warm-ups and seeing what the horse looks like physically, see if the horse looks sharp physically, and if the horse is meaning business today, looking like it is ready to race and ready to run well. That is another factor that you always want to add in if you can. Always important. And a lot of times you might take one out, put another one in on the basis of that physical analysis, and that's why it's very important. The past performances, no matter how close to race time they are, that was last week, last month, 2 weeks ago, whatever, and today is today. So today can be quite another deal on how the horse feels and whether the horse is totally sharp for this race today, and today is the day the race is going on. So you always want to pay attention to that. And in the superfecta bet, you can always make some last minute changes based on that if you feel like it, or even add a horse to the ones that you have based on that. In the 5th race, another mile on the turf, same par and par early speed. We take 7 and 9 on the top based on par again, and how close to par, how much under par really. And of course here we've got number 10, and as soon as we find out that's Goldikova, well, number 10 is in, and we pay respect to that very low number. We also see that we've got a lot of horses here in the 20s, so we know that a very low number will probably be a horse that's running well in this race, so number 10 goes in, along with a couple of those in the 20s, number 3 and number 9. Number 7 looks to have a little bit of run at a little higher speed at 40.89, so number 7 is in, and our 1 Euro goes in, and that Euro comes in 4th. So that's a reason to put the Euros in, especially on grass races. That should be their their home turf right there. Uh, no pun intended. But this takes us to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and that par is 100 on 90 early speed, and this is a one-turn mile. And we put in our number 12 at a par rating and simple pick. But also, I always think that's some pretty high early speed for this kind of race. But it is the Breeders' Cup, so speed is a part of ability, and you would expect it to be higher for these kind of horses. But quite often, the real talent of a very high class horse is to be able to run a little more comfortably and a little more under control early, not quite so fast, and to run with a little more stamina on the back part of the race. That's usually the real skill of the higher class horse. So high early speed is usually the mark of the lower class horse. But several great horses through the years have had the ability of very high early speed and fantastic stamina on the back end. So that combination really puts the horse in another class, and so you always have to pay respect to that when you're looking at horses like number 12 here that have very high early speed and perhaps a little higher than you really like. And at the ability rating right on par, we put number 12 in. But we also see on the bottom of our chart and at par early speed, we've got a nice group of 4 horses here that have actually higher than par ratings, which suggest that they're going to run very well in the second half of the race, and they might be able to take advantage of the couple of horses here that are pretty fast up here on the top. So we go with 4 of them, and we go with the higher ratings because we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 horses here that are actually well above par, I would think. But we're looking at that to suggest that they're, in terms of run, quite a bit of run for these horses. And we're seeing also number 1, number 13, number 2, number 11, 4 horses, more or less a third of the field, right around that same number. So we're kind of focusing on that number as being perhaps the par for this race, and maybe even a little higher. So with number 12 being in there, and number 13 right in the middle on early speed, another long shot at 20 to 1, and a couple here on the bottom are first 4 morning line choices, and a couple more long shots. We think we've got the thing covered, and with the odds on the horse that we have here, we think we've got an excellent chance at a very nice superfecta that does indeed pay $73,000, and can't sneeze at that. But number 1 is the winner, and right off the bottom of the chart at the lowest early speed, although it is just under the par, and right in with several other horses in the race ability-wise. So this is what I mean by any given day in these kind of races, and you've really got to look at almost the entire field as being able to win the race, and that's an example right there. I believe number 1 paid $77 to win, so that's always a nice winner to cash in on also, and even a nice horse to play, win, place, and show. You can't really go wrong on that. And in the last race of the day, last year, Breeders' Cup Classic, we have number 12 comes in 4th, and he's in our superfecta with a Kentucky Derby type rating, and right at the par early speed. our two on top are extremely low, and we kind of go more by the par and 12, 5, 6, 3, and 7, and our experience with 10 furlongs, a mile and a quarter, from the Kentucky Derby and other races of that distance with very high class horses, and that kind of directs us more in this particular race to horses with these numbers 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And with that in mind, these are the five we come up with. And it's interesting to note that number 5, Blame, is right here in the middle, just below 30 and just below the par early speed, while Zenyatta, just a half a head away at the finish, is 63.84, which is at first glance much lower in early speed. And of course, we're used to seeing her with those magnificent runs in the last half of the race, and the same thing happened in this one, and she's just a half a head off with a number that is twice approximately what Blame's number is, and the race goes that way. So this is how you use the numbers, the par, the ratings themselves, and early speed, make those considerations, and by common sense can put together some nice bets and some value bets and some winning bets. So that's the whole point, and that's one of the things you can do, and the main thing you do with Ability X ratings, and that's why we like to make them available to you so that you can, even as a beginner, even as someone that doesn't know a whole lot about horse racing and is wanting to learn about horse racing and the realities of horse racing, can pick up Ability X ratings and put together some good bets at the racetrack and learn about horse racing and become a better all the time with Ability X ratings. So pick them. I hear tell that they'll be available around Louisville, Kentucky, and on Central Avenue, and in various places that you can find, and various places you might stop in at on your way to the Breeders' Cup this weekend. So keep an eye out for Ability X ratings, and they should be there. And we'll also probably put out some physicality reports on Twitter and Facebook, so you might want to follow along with that. And we'll see you at the track. Thank you very much.